Matthew 27:57. When the evening was come, there came a rich man of Arimathaea named Joseph. Mark 15:42. And now, when the evening was come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which waited for the kingdom of God, came and went in boldly. Luke 23:50. And behold, there was a man named Joseph. So not the timing, just this guy. A counselor. He was a good and just man, and the same had not consented to the counsel indeed of them. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the kingdom of God. Luke has way more. And he went to Pilate. John 19:38. And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate. So it doesn't have when. No, it sort of does. After this. I guess I could start with, and after this, when the evening was come. So I'll start with the time. Mark, and now, when the evening was come. Luke, and behold. This is a more significant change in time. There's already a bunch of ands combining all the things that are happening at once. So I'm going to go with now. Leave off the and. So now from Mark, then right into John, after this. When the evening was come. Matthew, Mark. Because it was the preparation, the day before the Sabbath. Okay, I don't think that's mentioned anywhere else. John. Being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him. No mention of it being the day of preparation before the Sabbath. So that's only Mark. Just Mark for the rest of the timing, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath. Now, Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which also waited for the kingdom of God, came. Matthew has first that he came, who he is, then went. Luke, there was a man. A lot of information about him. Just went to Pilate. John, who he is, information about him, besought Pilate. So it doesn't have any came and went, just besought Pilate. I think I'm going to go with Matthew. He came, then all the information about him, and then what he ultimately does, goes to Pilate. So there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph. Mark. Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor. Doesn't say he's rich. Doesn't say he's named Joseph. Mark does have came and went. Luke, a man named Joseph. Okay, so that would fit with Matthew. Doesn't say he's rich, just that he's a counselor. Good and just. Okay. John Joseph of Arimathea, disciple of Jesus, secretly, not that he's rich. I'll start with there from Matthew came from Mark and Matthew, a rich man from Matthew, a man from Luke. Mark has an honorable counselor, but not that he's a rich man. Of Arimathea, named Joseph in Matthew. Named Joseph. The same had not consented to the counsel of the man. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the... Okay, I think I should actually have of Arimathea saved for when Luke mentions it, because that continues to explain more of the city, of the Jews. It wouldn't make any sense to have that much later if I say a rich man of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, named Joseph. I mean, I could, but... No. I think that from Luke 51, the same had not consented to the counsel and deed of them, should be the very last sentence about this man. So where he's from, how he acts, the fact that he's a disciple, and that he did not consent to the rest of them. He went in to Pilate. Which means that it would make sense to have the name of the city and the fact that it's a city of the Jews now. Of Arimathea, that's all four. Only Luke, a city of the Jews, named Joseph. Matthew has who also himself was Jesus' disciple. John has something similar, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews. And then he besought Pilate. So that should probably come last. Mark has more. An honorable counselor. Luke has counselor as the very next thing after his name, so I think I'll put that next. An honorable counselor. Should I combine a and an? I think I could. Just mark honorable. Counselor is both. Which also waited for the kingdom of God. Luke has a good man and just. He had not consented to the deed of them. Who also waited for the kingdom of God. So that's the same in Luke. You know what? I'm going to combine that with Matthew and John. Who also himself was. Who also himself waited for the kingdom of God. First, from Luke, a good man and just. Luke has in italics, and he was then a good man and a just. A good man and just. And I'm also going to leave off the A. It's written and a just, but that second and you would need to have another man, a good man and a just man, but that's just repetitive. A good man and just, that's all that's needed. So I'm going to repeat that A in the addresses for a good man. Now, like I said from 51 of Luke 23, I think I'm going to save the same had not consented to the counsel and deed of them. So that'll be last after mentioning that he is a disciple, but secretly for fear of the Jews. who also himself, Matthew and Luke, who also himself John has being a disciple of Jesus. I think that would fit after waited for the kingdom of God. As opposed to was a disciple. And that's even better. Just because Jesus is dead doesn't mean you can't be his disciple anymore. You can still follow someone's teachings and apply them, whether they're alive or dead. So I think it'd be better to have being Jesus' disciple, even though he's now dead. So I'm going to put waited for the kingdom of God first. Mark and Luke. Being A is John. Disciple is Matthew and John of John. Now Jesus is both. But secretly for fear of the Jews. That's all John. And before he besought Pilate, I can have the same had not consented to the counsel and deed of them. That's a long sentence. I could have those words from Luke, and he was. Those are all in italics. And he was. I could have that be after a period, after Joseph is named. It would be, there came a rich man of Arimathaea, a city of the Jews, named Joseph, period. Then, next sentence, and he was an honorable counselor, a good man and just. So I know there's no actual period there after Joseph's name, but combining all four of these, it's way too long to leave them as one giant run-on sentence. So I'm just gonna pick, say, Matthew. I'll pick a period from Matthew somewhere in the future, and when it comes to it, I'll leave it off. And he was. All those ands from the beginning of these verses from Mark, Luke, and John, I put that here instead of the one from Luke that was in italics.